Hi, it's Laura at Aquamarine 18 Tarot and Books. Thanks for stopping by my channel today. Welcome or welcome back. I am here with a sort of first impressions video of a deck that I've just recently received a couple of days ago that I'm very excited about, but that I have resisted the urge to open until I had time to share my thoughts about the deck with you. I say this is a sort of first impressions. It is not a first impressions in the sense of seeing the artwork for the first time, but it is a first impressions in that I have not gone through the deck or worked with it in any way. I had only previously seen the artwork on the Kickstarter campaign and in a video walking through the first edition of this deck. So I haven't had the deck in my hands yet, And that's a different kind of first impressions, I think. I am very excited to share with you the Queer Crow Death Magic Tarot. Check out that metallic. This is a deck by Frank Duffy. This is, again, the second printing, which I'm really excited about. And to my knowledge, the second printing, the artwork is the same as the first printing. I think there are some production components that are different, like the box is definitely different. I believe the cardstock may be different, but the artwork, to my knowledge, is the same. And the back of the box tells us that this is an indie self-published tarot deck created with lino prints by a trans witch in a little studio in rural West Wales, crowdfunded and produced with grassroots support and a whole lot of love and crows. A 100-page guidebook available separately. Printed in the UK on FSC paper using renewable energy. And in addition to the art being fantastic, it being a queer deck, definitely the environmental components drew me in as well. I did add the book when I backed the deck, and the book is on 100% PCW recycled paper. The cover feels like this kind of craft paper, like craft board. It's red on the inside, which I think is cool. And there was also an option for a PDF book only. I find I don't use PDF guidebooks quite as much. I like to have them, but if there's an option for a physical book and it's a book I think I'm going to use, I will go for it. So in my package, I got the deck and the book, and it came with this nice postcard. It just says, "Thanks, Laura, Frank," on the back. So I'll look at the guidebook and share its contents just very briefly, and then I want to get to the deck because I've been impatient. I am impatient. So, or rather, I've been patient, kind of, but I'm feeling impatient now. So the guidebook is, again, I think 100 pages, roughly, yep. I'll show the contents here. So you can see the contents there. Some general info that has to do with kind of the first edition and the second edition and the timeline of creating the lino prints. Some ways to read cards, example divination. They look at a card from a specific deck and kind of talk about some different ways to look at that card. Some notes on reversed cards if that's a thing that you want to work with, that acknowledges that not everybody does read reversals. The section called symbology is kind of brief keywords for each number. So like aces, twos, threes, and so on. Each court card, and then kind of the majors and what they signify as a whole versus the minors versus the courts. There are a couple of spreads, including Celtic Cross. And then the bulk of the book, and definitely the part of the book that I was most interested in, is the card by card, one page for each. And each card has a paragraph, you know, something about the card. And then also comes with some questions to kind of prompt reflection or interpretation. So pages look like that. For example, the questions associated with the Justice card. How much do I rely on the structures of the state? How much work am I willing to put in to affect change? I like these questions. So I'm looking forward to delving into this. I haven't, again, you know, read it yet, so just a overview. Now, deck comes in this nice 2-piece box. The box has a nice kind of texture to it in addition to this metallic. I don't know if that will pick up. It almost has a bit of a linen feel, which I think is nice. And the cards are larger than standard. So have a comparison here. This is the mass market Lubanco in the front, which is a standard tarot, and the Queer Crow Death Magic here at the back. So you can see it's quite a bit wider and also a little bit taller than a standard tarot. It is pretty big, which I like. For me personally, in terms of shuffling and ease of use, I am a disaster shuffler with very small decks, and I'm totally fine shuffling a deck like this. Obviously, the constraint with a deck like this is that depending on your reading surface, you know, larger cards mean fewer cards on the table, potentially, but that's fine with me. So, the cardstock is nice. It is matte. Has a bit of a shine, but it's not a gloss. It's smooth. It's not like rose petal-y or textured at all in that way that some decks are. It feels like it will be a really good, satisfying shuffle. It's not going to clump, which I like. So there are 2 cards here that are extra ones. One is called On These Card Designs. And it reads, I've been reading tarot cards since my mid-teens and have been steeping in that symbology since then. So you might think that I have thought long and hard about these designs, but no, I have thought about them as little as possible. The designs arrived in my head pretty much fully formed, then I'd scribble them down on paper and work out how they'd fit best onto the lino plate. If I had to think about one of the designs, it meant it wasn't right. Some of the images relate closely to established decks, some I'm still trying to piece together the meaning for. All have deepened my understanding of the deck and of myself. If you'd like to learn more, I've written a little book available on my website, the tarot book. And then it has a quote by Alejandro Jodorowsky, who I wish we would just stop quoting, to be quite blunt. There's then a little thank you. This is the second printing of this tarot deck, and I really didn't anticipate it. Huge thanks to everyone who's bought, shared, made YouTube reviews, and generally ensured the success of this indie deck. So then there's a little thank you. There's a discount code. Oh, and it shares that these cards and their box are printed in the UK by a company that is ISO 14001 accredited on cardstock that is FSC certified using 100% renewable energy. So a bit more about the environmental aspects of the deck. This is the back. Black and white. And it is, to my eye, fully reversible. If it's not fully reversible, it's very close. Which I like. I'm not someone who reads reversals consistently, but I still prefer a reversible back, just in case, you know. I might want to read reversals. Some decks I read reversals much more consistently, and some I never do. But I like to have reversible, so I'm very excited. The Fool has a person jumping over an alligator's teeth there. I really like the kind of coloring in this deck. Magician. There are some name changes in the deck. I don't remember to what extent this is the case, but we have a gender non-specified or gender neutral. Ever so slight renaming here. Whereas the Empress and the Emperor are named as conventional. I really like lino print as a way of making. Really, really like this. I feel like there's going to be a lot in terms of color in this deck as well. The Hierophant. I like the little feet at the bottom, peeking out from under the robe. And in the symbolism section of the guidebook, Frank notes that for them, in terms of personal symbolism, crows are given the keyword chaos. Skulls, hidden treasure. Stars, inspiration, luck, or blessings. Dashed or wiggly lines, power. Hands, control or deftness. And hearts, look for the path of the heart. So thinking with just that from the guidebook, there's this squiggly lines of power here. And also those lines from the sun. I'm assuming the sun and not the moon. It could be either, I suppose. The Lovers. I like this Lovers. It's not gender specific. I'm curious just to see how much the deck speaks to the specific. Okay, so in this particular case, the book doesn't speak specifically to the artistic choices in the card necessarily. It doesn't speak to, for example, the antlers there. It's a more general. This is an interesting chariot in that the vehicle itself is not really depicted. It brings more, it feels like it could be called the charioteer in a way. Strength. It's like bold. Leo. Strength. The Hermit. Wheel of Fortune. Justice. So of course strength is at 8 and justice is at 11. The Hanged One. I really like this. I really, really like this. I am excited. So, card 13. Temperance. I really like this Temperance card a lot. That's beautiful. I feel like it's there are enough nods to something like a Smith-Waite in this deck that if one had a resource or book that was kind of keyed in that direction, one would not be totally lost. But it's also enough its own thing that it, you know, it definitely has its own symbolic language, I would say, or its own, I don't really think in terms of deck personality, but it has its own interpretation. It's its own take on the tarot for sure. Sun. Now I will say typically I do not like faces in the sun and moon. There's not that many decks that have done sun and moon faces that I'm that into. There are decks that I love that have that. Like the Darkness of Light tarot has it for sure. A couple of others. It doesn't tend to be a thing I'm drawn to, but here I actually quite like it. I feel like with the Lino Prince as a medium, it might be like very minimal if it didn't have that. So I like that. Judgment is named The Last Judgment. And the World. Now the minors are more pippish. If you have seen me talk about tarot a lot, you will know that fancy pips, like pips with feeling, is something that I really like in a deck. I like when the minors are not necessarily scenic and full of humans, but I also like when there's more in them, there's more to them than a kind of straightforward, here are 9 wands, in the 9 of wands, and nothing else. I like that. Fancy pips. Fancy pips is maybe my favorite. And this deck is fancy pips. And there's also an element of, to some extent, I think, color coding in the minors. So just to get a sense of that, if I fan out the wand cards, I'm trying really hard not to make a mess. You can see the fieriness of the wands, which I think is a really nice touch. I really like these kind of gradient backgrounds. Ace of Wands. Two. Three of Wands. Four of Wands. It's like, the card like this gives a sense of what I would think of as a kind of the stability that comes with a 4. The kind of locked inness of four legs on a table, this kind of thing. There's just that something extra about the arrangement. The 5 of Wands, if you can see here, those are hands holding the 5 wands or batons. it gives that sense of the conflictual nature of the Five of Wands as a card without having to show like a picture of 5 people fighting, right? This is what I love about a fancy pip. 6 of Wands. Seven of Wands. I love this. There's that real hint of the kind of Smith Waite, but it also reads as more neutral, and I like neutral. Eight of Wands. I'm curious about whether they name the tree in the Eight of Wands. I have to look in the guidebook. Yeah, so I knew. The Eight of Wands reads that in Northern Europe, the silver birch tree is known as a pioneer tree, growing swiftly on land previously cleared and reclaiming it for the forest. Birch, as a kind of beginning, you know, I think with the swiftness of the Eight of Wands, it makes sense, and it's something that, you know, if you're an Ogam person, you would pick up on right away. I feel like this deck is going to be full of these little elements of symbol that I'm looking forward to finding and discovering. And the quartz. Page. Knight. I like that it has the horse there. And it has the astrological glyphs there as well. Queen. So you have the conventional titles of the quartz, but there's nothing overtly gendered in the imagery, which I like. And King. We have, of course, an immediate color shift going into the cups. Ace of Cups. I love this Two of Cups. I think it's beautiful. Three of Cups. Four. Five. Love those colors. Six of Cups. The skeleton on the 6 is an interesting choice. 7. 8. 9. 10. Page. I like that. The Knight of Cups also has a horse. I just want to compare for a second. Just want to compare for a second here to the Wands. Yeah, so they have these similarities, but the horse in the Wands is really racing in ways that the one in Cups is not. The one in the Cups is in water as well. So you get that difference. Queen. And King. Now, the swords are less... consistently color-coded, I would say, than the two suits we just saw. Try to show here. That's the swords fanned out. Ace. Oh, I love the Two of Swords. Love that. Love it. 3, 4. Similar layout to the Four of Wands, but very clearly distinguishable, and also, of course, all the cards have the text, so there's no confusing. 5 of Swords. It's interesting. Six of Swords. These are tentacles down here, which I quite enjoy. 7 of Swords. 8 of Swords. That's very evocative, I think, with the stars outside of the box there. 9 of Swords. And 10. The Chaotic Crows. Page of Swords. Knight. So again, the horse inside the circle is a running theme. Here the kind of movement of air, the wind is emphasized, and the horse is up on back legs. Queen of Swords. And King. Finally, the Pentacles, and they are named Pentacles in this deck. Ace. Two. 3. I really like the oak leaves and acorn here. So, Druid, there's probably no surprise there. Just want to see if it says anything in the book about that. There is not anything specific about it. But it does talk about mixing time-honed skills with disciplined attention. And the beauty of a job well done. So thinking about woodworking or something like that, that tracks. I think that's beautiful. 4 of Pentacles. I really like that kind of structure feel of the 4s in this deck. 5. That's a heavy 5 of Pentacles, I feel like, with that division there through the middle. 6. Oh, I love the 7 of Pentacles. That's beautiful. I love it. 8. 9. I love the 10 of Pentacles. This tree, so well established. Love that. I love the Page of Pentacles. The Knight. This horse looks like a, is it a Clydesdale or something like this? A bigger horse to me. Queen. And King. I am very excited. I'm very excited. I'm very happy with this. I think this deck is beautiful, and I cannot wait to work with it and to find some good pairings and all of those good things. If you got this deck, if you've been working with this deck, if you're waiting for this deck, let me know in the comments. I would love to hear your experiences with it. I know several other folks here on TarotTube also really enjoy this deck. I am very excited. I can see this deck actually being one that would go over really well reading at markets, which I do on occasion. I feel like, it's really bold and it's really colorful. It would be one that, if I was going to a reader with a couple of different decks on their table, which is what I do, it's one that would catch my eye if I was going to be picking. I feel like this might be one to take with me. I think that people would respond really well to it. I am excited. Thank you so much for watching and for sharing my excitement with me. And I will see you again soon. Have a good one.